talking through homework last night, I just mentioned about how I crossed out these problems yesterday. I'm going back in the notes and saying, yep, these problems I'm not going to put on a test or a quiz. I'm crossing it off altogether. We're skipping the idea of finding a vertex with completing the square. You'll see it again in Algebra 2. You don't necessarily need to master it right now in Algebra 1. Now, in order to have done homework last night, you had to follow your steps.
Yes.
And if you didn't follow your steps, oh man, it would have been hard. If not impossible. So let me get the answers back up here, kiddos. And as I get them up, I have my iPad open and I'm ready to write down any questions that you want me to look at from 53 or 54. I'm going to scroll down in just a second.
That's all 53.
And 54. Because it's all one section, so I have all the answers. I'll keep scrolling down. So right now on the board, these are for numbers 7 through 21. Here are the even 7 through 21, 8 through 20. Then here's where homework 54 starts. So now the answer.
What's the date today?
Yeah. I'll scroll down in a second. Does anybody want questions? Oh, please.
I have a question on 21.
Number 21.
And 16.
And 16.
What's the date?
I can take more questions, kiddos. Any more besides 16? I'm going to scroll down.
Okay.
20.
79.
I have questions on 16, 20, 21, 17, 16. Just scroll down all of it so you guys can keep checking.
Wait.
78 is 2 root 3. It came from square root of 12. You guys could have simplified 2 root 3. Keep checking for homework number 54. Josh, go ahead.
Was yesterday's notes 9.4? Or
9.4 part.
part?
Today's notes were 9.4 part 1. Yesterday's were 9.4.
Okay. That's what I needed.
Any more questions from the end of the homework?
Is it okay to answer the decimals? Like,
Well, you
instead
have to
of
put the balance.
yeah.
Oh, like in number 16, did you put
Yeah.
1.5?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So as long as you have a 1.5 there and a 2.25 there.
Okay.
Was there another one that was a fraction of each other? That one would have been, what, 20.25?
Yeah.
Any other questions for us to go over? Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and come over to homework. I'm going to go ahead and zoom on in. Let me make this big because we're going to need to go over these questions. Were you able to get one?
Yeah, I recall.
You just put it right on my desk. Thank you, Griffin. I appreciate that.
Okay.
We're starting with number 16. Alright, which was x squared minus 3x. I'm going to go ahead and write these problems down so you can just do it in our notes. For those of you guys that might not have your homework done for today, you didn't get to finish all of this, or you got stuck last night and you have way more questions than just these three we're going to go over, go ahead and get out your notes and write down these examples. Something went wrong last night, which is why you weren't able to do this homework. So we need to make sure that we can finish it. And these are the questions that the kiddos that did do their homework got stuck on.
Amen.
Read number 16 and number 20. Number 20 was x squared plus 2x equals 5.
Yes.
I was confused with 29 and 30.
21. And then 79, right? Good. 79 means this is today, so that's not a bad question. 21 was x squared minus 5x equals 8. So just, thank you. So you just do this. X squared minus 5x equals 8. What are we missing? Oh, number 79. in for a formula?
7879? Yeah, it's plugging in from section 9.1.
And you're plugging into the formula. You guys hopefully read the directions, otherwise you wouldn't know what to plug it into, right? So we have b squared minus 4ac, and we're plugging in the a, b's, and c's that they give us.
Yes.
So a is equal to -2, b is equal to 4, c is equal to 7. Alright, kiddos, let's go ahead and look at number 16 and you get my notes up there. There we go. Let's take it quick. So starting with number 16. Our directions were to figure out the number to complete the square. The first thing you have to know before you can complete is that something is missing. So you put a blank. That was the first step of the problem. You could also put plus c if you would like. But then we need to figure out what is that c. What needs to go into that blank. So we need to fill it out. So then if you go ahead and hold down the -3, question, what is the special formula that we need to use to find the special number to plug in?
1/2 times 2 is -3.
Good. 1/2 times that number and then
1.5.
square it, right? 1/2 times that number and then square it.
You said you could use a decimal, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So some people right now are like, oh, that's gross, it's a fraction. And it is.
1.5.
You could have done -3 over 2 squared, which would have been 9/4. But some of your classmates also figured it out as a decimal. Both of them are correct. Both of them are the same number. Dylan, go ahead.
Why would you do -3 over 2?
Because when you multiply 1/2 times -3, or when you cut -3 in half, you have to think about -3 as being over 1 and you multiply across. Does that make sense?
Oh, because you. Oh, yeah, that's the square.
And so in your calculators, you guys could have done 3 divided by 2. You guys know how to do fractions, right? 3 divided by 2, which is 1.5, and then square that. Go ahead, David. What's up?
1/2
Yes. So technically, let me show this a different way. You put an or right here. Could have gone to a decimal up here, and you would have gotten that decimal down there. So either way you go, whether you go the fraction route, which is on the left, or whether you go the decimal route, which is on the right, both of them end up with an equivalent answer. So I would have said either one of these would have been great to fill in the blank one. Does that make sense? Okay. That was number 16. We have to know that formula. We just didn't like the fraction. Number 20, it says solve with completing the square, Jane. Hard stuff. Solve with completing the square. So we're not moving the 5, we're keeping the 5 where it is, and we're saying, hold on, the first step to completing the square is realizing that the something is missing. Where am I supposed to put a plus blank? After 2x, and say I need to fill in the special third term. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Jay.
I'll know where that was before. But it was x squared plus whatever 6x plus 16 equals 30 something. What would you do with this?
Yes. You would subtract 16 to make it look like this. Because if you want to complete the square, you want to make the third number yourself. You don't want them to make it for you. So you move that 16, that way you can go ahead and mark it like 14 to this one. So you would need to move the 16 so that then you can fill in the third number yourself. So you have to complete it right, and right now it's not complete. Now this was a made up ish example. It was like one of the homework ones. Let's come back to number 20. Okay, kiddos, how do we fill in the blank?
You have to find half.
Good. So you got half of. Good. Just not the x, just the number. Just take the number. Oh, looks like the x, doesn't it? Just take the number. What's 1/2 of 2? 1. If I have 2 things and I'm taking half of them, I have 1 left over. That's a little too rough. You can think of the fractions. 2 over 2 equals 1. 1 squared is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my 1 in my blank. Keep the x squared. keep the 2x, put in a 1. What I did on one side, I have to put it on the other side. Right? So then on the left side, I'm going to factor. This is the jump that gets kind of confusing if you're following the steps. But in our notes, we said we can always fill in the factors if we steal the number before it was squared, right? What squared is 1? 1. And 5 plus 1 is 6. All right, kiddos, help me out. This is a long problem. Where it gets a little tricky. How do I get to x if I have x plus 1 squared equals 6? Josh.
You have to do x plus 1 and then another group of x plus 1 and then do 4.
Well, if you FOIL, that's a good idea normally. If you FOIL them, you're going to get right back here where we just were.
Oh, that's true.
So we're actually going to go a different route. So think FOILing, oh no, that's going backwards.
Oh, because you have to,
Put the radical in, put the square root in. Okay. Put the radical in, put the square root in, because I need to get rid of the squared. We're solving with the square root. Square root both sides. Wait, when it's a positive number, what do I have to put in front of that square root?
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus, good Alan. Put in a plus or minus, the squareds cancel. X plus 1 is alone. What's the square root of 6? Do I know that? So wait, pause. Where do we go? Calculator. You can multiply ish, but it's going to be kind of hard. It's going to be in between 2 and 3. When you go to your calculator, do you guys know that your phones, someone was asking me this earlier, that your phones, if you put it sideways,
Yeah.
have a square root?
Yeah.
Okay,
I could
cool.
just use my.
So who found last night the square root of 6 for me?
I got you.
And number 21. No, someone should have that in the paper.
2.449.
Say it one more time, Josh.
2.449.
2.449. Other ones who were willing to help me, thank you. I just was looking for someone who had already found it. Then I would go ahead and solve. How many equations am I making, guys? How many am I making? How come 2? One for the positive, one for the negative.
Would it be 2.45? Because you round.
Oh, I forgot that we're supposed to round. We're supposed to round to the hundreds?
Yep.
Okay. So
Wait.
let's-
Yeah.
That's the square root of 6.
That's when you put it in like
Plus.
Oh, okay.
the square root of 6 isn't a nice number. Then I solve with algebra, right? Those of you guys that need it, we can subtract 1 from the ones place. Alan, a little bit quieter. We end up with x is equal to 1.45. That's one answer. Yeah. One over here. We will end up with x equals negative 3.45. So there were a lot of places you can get stuck in this problem. This was a long one. But we had to start off with making the blank, realizing we had to complete the square using our special formula, so we put in both sides, factor, in order to be able to square root, and then solve for our 2 answers. Okay? So far you guys are just not like the ones with fractions and decimals.
No.
We got hang in there with the fractions. And number 21. You want me to sneak in number 25? Okay, we'll sneak it in then. Just gonna write it so that way I don't forget. Number 21. You might not finish the entire thing because I think if you get number 20, you should get 21. Can you guys just tell me how to spell? If you remember how to spell. No, don't add 5x. We need to complete the square. The first step is realizing that we're missing something. When they say complete the square, we say, okay, we remind ourselves of what we're missing. And if we do it on the left, then what are we going to do on the right? Mary, do you have a question? Oh yeah, go ahead. What's next?
So we divide 5 by 2 and then square it, so it equals to 25. So you add both sides to 25.
So divide negative 5 by 2. Ooh, what is negative 5 divided by 2? Do you guys want to go decimals? Oh, not decimals.
Negative fraction.
Okay. So that'd be
Oh,
negative 5
wait, I
plus,
got it wrong. So it's like 6.25.
which they want to keep it in fractions, which is fine. Negative 5 squared is 25. 2 squared is 4. Because because when we multiply 1/2 by -5, we multiply the tops by each other. 1 times -5, and 2 times 1. And when we square a fraction, -5/2 times -5/2 is 25/4. And we put that in our blank, right? So we're gonna have our x squared minus 5x 25/4 equals, so we're gonna have to do 8 plus 25/4. Now most of you will probably go to not a fraction. I just can't write the right number. Most of you will probably go to your calculator right about now because you're scared of these big numbers. You could technically stay in fractions, like some people were saying a second ago, because we could see who was there before the square, just like in all the rest. And we could move that, put that to make our factor. We get a little stuck when we went to 8 plus 25/4. 25/4 came from -5. Remember, we could see it. Some of you would get a little lost. I would make a common denominator if we were staying in fractions, like some people ask. We would end up with 32 plus 25 would be 59. So 57. So I think at this point, most of you guys would just go to fractions. Or sorry, to decimals. You can square root both sides, just like you saw us do on the page before. And once you get to decimals, you guys can go ahead and solve for your 2 answers. Now technically those decimals are, I think, in the back of the book since this is an odd problem. At this point, square rooting 57/4, there's not really, you can square root 4, but you can't square root 57. You would probably have to go to because you do the square root of 57 in your head. Because I was able to do this in my head, and I saw that 8 becomes 32/4. And so I added 32 plus 25. 3 plus 2 is 5, 2 plus 5 is 7. I got 57. So then we would have our x minus 2.5, which is 5/2 equals a positive square root of that you would put into your calculator, 57/4. And then x minus 2.5 equals the negative square root of. I'm just going to put dot, 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 so you guys will need to go to your calculator as well.
Never mind. Because I thought that you had positive, but I didn't realize.
You saw there was a top. Good. Positive. Kiddos number 79, I want to get to, but I want that to be the last question we answer. So, Rob, you had a question on number 25. Can you just read me off the problem that we're supposed to
X
solve?
squared
Got it. Keep going.
minus 8x plus 15 equals 0.
Jay, this is kind of like the ones that you were saying. There's just a 0 instead of a number, but either way, we still say the 15, we don't want it. Good. So, Rob, we're going to move it to the other side. 15 isn't the special number that we want. It's not going to complete the square for us. So
8x squared, or x squared, sorry. And then you would your blanks.
yeah, why did I leave a big old blank? Because we need to fill it ourselves.
This is where I have trouble. Would you get half of 8?
Take that middle number just like we always do. Very engaged. So you would take half that middle number just like we always do.
So when you need half, all of it can do right now.
Just like we always do, right? Half of negative 8 is? When we square negative 4, we get? So what are you going to put in the blank? Nope, a negative times a negative is a positive. So negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. So we're filling our blanks. You guys tell me. Good. Careful, not plus 16. Where'd the 16
Plus.
come from?
Negative 4.
Good. It came from the negative 4. Gotta ask yourself where it came from.
Yep.
Let me finish this example. On the other side, what's negative 15 plus 16? 1. Everybody. How do I keep going? What do I put in?
Where?
Oh, that wasn't everybody. What do I do? Square it. Both of them square
And
root.
you can.
So
Goats.
Plus 4 minus, right?
And
Good. What's left on the left?
X minus 4.
Good. What's left on the right? What is the square root of 1?
It's -1 and then.
Good. Positive 1, negative 1. How many equations do I make?
Goats.
So I have x minus 4 equals positive 1.
And X minus 4.
Rob, how we doing? Is it good?
Yes, it's good. Just want to make sure I did it correctly.
Good. Now we're just doing quick algebra. X equals 4 plus 4. I know, don't make fun of my old self. X equals careful. -1 plus 4. The 4 wins, but the 1 took 1 away. So it's only 3. All right. Kiddos, we're going to turn this in just 1 second. I just want to go to number 79 real fast because this is where we're going to start for today's lesson with a brand new formula that we're going to need to memorize. I have a little song to hopefully help us. But the hardest part of the formula, there's 2 hard parts. The hardest part of the formula, after you have it memorized, Rob and Tyler put the wood away. The hardest part is simplifying something like this that's going to show up in the formula. So, you guys got to practice it the night before because all they said was plug in and simplify. It's okay. How do we plug in, guys? B is 4 squared. You ask yourself, who's this guy? And you say, oh, there he is, right? Then you ask yourself, who's this guy? There he is. There's the A. And then, yeah, kind of, right? Then you say, who's C? There he is. And now it's time just to plug and chug. So plug means plug in, chug it means simplify it. So, what gets put into the B spot? That's going to be squared. The 4. Minus 4 times what gets put in the A spot? Negative 2. And what gets put into the C spot? Now, pause. PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. What do we do first? Parentheses. But question, is there anything to do inside the parentheses?
No.
Is it just a number?
No.
No, there's nothing to do inside the parentheses. There's nothing to do inside. There's no plus or minus in here. No plus or minus or multiply divide. Okay, so parentheses aren't the right way to go. Then what do we do next? Exponents. Yes. Aiden, pay attention. So exponents say, simplify this guy. What is the square root of 4? Sorry, what is 4 squared? 4 times 4. 16. 4 times 4. Then I have my -4 times -2 times 7. PEMDAS tells me, great, you dealt with the exponents. Now what is it going to deal with? Multiplication. But we go from left to right, right? So then as we go from left to right, what are we going to get? Minus, what's 4 times -2? -8. Minus the -8. And then we still have a 7, right?
Yes.
So then we have 16. Can't we say a negative times a negative is a positive?
Yes. So now
So 16.
8 times 7 is, we have to multiply. It's time to multiply those two. 8 times 7 is 56. We're almost there. Now we can do our addition. Has anybody already done this addition? They can tell me what it is?
Yeah.
Good.
72.
Now guys, here's silly. I'm going to even draw a box to show you. That is correct. However, the question said plug in and simplify. Oh, yeah, sorry. What is that? And simplify. Question, Angel, what can I break 72 down? Do you think it can break down?
Well,
72?
into
Smaller numbers?
smaller numbers. Yeah.
Okay, can someone tell me anything goes into 72?
8
times
9.
8 times 9 is a common one. I'll just use that right now. Now, we like 9. Can anyone tell me why? 9 has a square root. But question, Rob, can 8 be broken down anymore? Yeah, to what? 4 times
2. It can get broken down to double digits.
So we have different options, kiddos, but the long story short is, can't we, right now, if we see some nice square roots that we can take, can't we just take square roots for every single piece? It's called the product property of radicals.
Yeah.
I see some nice square roots, meaning what's the square root of 4?
2.
What's the the square root of 9?
Gotta close the
Now wait, what's the proper way of writing this answer?
So now it's
2 times
2 times 3 you can combine. Why can't
and
the
then
root 2 combine with anything?
fine.
It's inside the house. Remember, whoever's inside stays inside, whoever's outside stays outside. So, this one is right up above. However, this one is simplified, so he is the complete
answer.
final answer. Alright, kiddos, with that, 53 and 54, I'm going to have you guys pass it straight back to me on in the back. 53 and 54. If you need to still turn it in after school and ask me some questions, you may, just don't forget.
Don't
These two are outside the house, so together. He's inside the house. Alright, any more 54s? You guys pass them straight back. He's going to alphabetize in your break. Kiddos, notes open. Here we go. We need to see our one formula. We need to see our one formula. We need to plug in. We need to see our one formula. Wait a minute, hold on. Look at your warm up. Does it look that much different than 79? Okay, so ready, set. Your warm up is to do another problem like number 79. Ready, set, go. So this is the next problem I let you skip for homework. You're doing it now. Alright, notes open. Here we go. So you just saw me do 79. You guys were talking me through it. Now it's your turn. Who is A? Who is that guy? Right, John? Who is A? Who is B? Who is C? Plug him in.
Yeah.
Haley, how many pages did you use on 9.4?
2.
Pages or?
Yeah, 2 full.
Not full.
Like
So
practice.
1 page for one day, 1 page for the second day. Alright, 95. Alright, you guys are using the plug and chug. You have what to plug into, and you've been given A and B and C.
Do we do it as radical, or should we break it down again?
Break it down as far as you can break it down. AKA simplify. And also the color code. Yeah.
Open the back door.
Sure you heard it.
What?
Come here, you John 5.
Yeah.
So that's the original.
Angel, you plugged it in?
I'm writing the title.
Stop!
Oh, yeah, it's 2. Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Ready, set, go.
Ian, what's up? You getting it?
Yeah.
Alright guys, we're plugging in. Let's see what we do. Aiden, Darcy, let's go. You ready? Alright, Rob and the rest of the guys in the back, let's make sure you did it perfectly. Okay, so as you guys go to plug in, hopefully you put the 6 squared.
Yep.
So you get 4 times A times C. Okay. So 6 gets times A times C. PEMDAS tells you to do the squared first, which is 36. Were you guys able to do the 4 times the 1 times the 4? What'd you get? 16. So we do the exponents first, then we do the multiplying.
What
Left
did
to
you
right.
get 16 in school?
4 times 1 is 4,
4 times 10.
and then 4 times 4 is 16. So we do all the multiplication. Now guys, it's time to subtract, and what'd you get?
20.
Good. Can 20 get broken down?
No.
Yeah. 20 is 5 times 4. Now some of you did keep going and say that 4 is 2 times 2.
Oh, you're supposed to.
But I'm going to go ahead and just break up right now.
Right?
Because do we know the square root of 4?
2.
2.
So then it's.
But how do I properly write this?
2 in front of the square root.
Okay. So, kiddos, plugging in is the name of the game today, but we have to know what to plug into. The nice thing is in these directions, they gave us what to plug into. But the title, you guys should have already written. What's the title for section 9.5?
Solving quadratic equations using a quadrant formula.
Here is the new formula that we need to learn today. The quadratic formula. What you see right here is only part of the quadratic formula.
No.
Robin, Tyler, focus. What you see right here in circle is only part of the quadratic formula. It's the hardest part, I think. But the problem is the quadratic formula also has a fraction. So we got to go ahead and pay super careful attention when we plug in the fraction.
So you put 5 to 2, and then 2 for the thing on the 5. But it could have been
She's outside of the house. Alright, kiddos, here's that formula that we need to learn. Don't worry, we only have 1 page of notes today, and we have all examples. Yep. The quadratic formula is in a yellow box. We have already learned the standard form of a quadratic. Not every question will be seen like that, though. We're going to have to make the question look like that if it's not already in that form. But once we have standard form, you need to write down and box and star, and if you have a highlighter, highlight this formula, the quadratic formula. There's a lot going on. Some of you might recognize the negative b all over 2a.
What formula did we use for the other one? Number 8.
We used just this square root part. So they were getting you used to the square root part, but the whole formula has a little bit
Yeah, it
more.
doesn't have a specific name.
It actually has a name called a discriminant, that square root part, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. This part, the square root, is called the discriminant. Not discriminate, discriminant. It sounds similar, but it's very different. Discriminant. D-I-S-C-R-I-M-A-N. So it's not like you're discriminating, it's discriminant. So it ends with and. Okay, get the formula down. Now guys, this is a very important formula because in some quadratics, factoring fails. Factoring is very useful and much faster than this formula, but it only works on special trinomials. Sometimes factoring fails. Sometimes completing the square is hard. And if completing the square is hard, and we cannot use our graphing calculator that you guys will eventually get for Algebra 2. Because if you remember on a graph, we can find intercepts to find zeros. If factoring is impossible, completing the square is hard, and we cannot use a graph, this is where you must go. Now in different countries, they don't even teach the quadratic formula. They say you only complete the square, have fun, good luck.
Really?
And it works. Completing the square always works, but sometimes it is hard, and sometimes the quadratic formula makes the process go faster. But you have to know the quadratic formula for it to go faster than completing the square. If this was a fast algebra class, I would probably show you where this formula came from. It actually comes straight out of completing the square. But If you wanna see that, you have to come after school, cause otherwise it would take an entire board to show and you would get really overwhelmed. So instead, we'll just say this formula works. And it works in order to find, did you guys write the word zeros? It works to find zeros or x-intercepts. Another name for those are solutions. It works to find the zeros. But we have to follow a couple steps to get there. And the steps, number one, are get the quadratic in standard form.
Pretty sure Q for short. Or quad.
You can do quad for short. In standard, you can, let's just do normal standard. Standard form. I'm going to draw an arrow. This is standard form. ax squared plus bx plus c. Because, look at the formula. We want to know who a is, who b is, and who c is to plug in. So we're going to get it in standard form. We are going to plug in a and b and c to the formula. Which formula? The quadratic formula. And then we are going to simplify any fractions, any radicals, whatever we legally can. Kind of like you guys just did in number 79 and 80. You were given part of the formula and we saw how to simplify that part using radical simplification from 9-1. But then we're going to have to look at the entire thing and say, is there anything else we can simplify? Okay, I have an example down below, but before I go to that, you're going to hear me singing now. It's really sad because I have this weird that's like coming back for round 2 and it's not letting me alone. But this formula can be remembered with the song. That's a really silly one and it sounds really dumb, but it does help people memorize it. And it goes like x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2. Silly. But for a lot of you guys, music sticks and lyrics to songs stick better than math facts. So I'll see you again tomorrow. But right now, one more time. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2. We're learning. So in order to plug in for our example down below, x equals negative b plus or minus
Where?
minus 4 AC all over 2.
Way.
Okay, we're getting it. Okay, so question, before we can plug into this, what is my A, what is my B, and what is my C?
The C is 5.
The C is 5. Think about the formula up above. AX squared plus BX plus C.
A
C
is
5.
1 and B is 6.
B is negative 6 and A is 1. Let's come back and zoom in.
Okay, okay.
If there's no number in front, it's an automatic 1. Hence, A is 1. B is negative 6 and C is 5. So let's go ahead and now that we've identified what each of our letters is, it's time for us to go ahead and plug in. So X equals negative, who's B? Negative 6. Plus or minus square root B squared, who's B?
So you have to remember.
Negative 6. Exactly, that's my point. Minus 4A, who's A?
1.
C, who's C?
He's fine.
All over 2A.
Oh, that's 1.
That's okay. If you think of the letter, then if you can attach the letter to a number, then you can plug in. Now guys, do you see why maybe they had you in last night's homework work just to the square root part?
Yeah.
To make this not as scary when it gets put with other things? Let's go through and do a few things that we can simplify right now. We are allowed to look at the numerator and the denominator in 2 separate pieces. In the numerator, we're allowed to look at the outside square root and under square root in 2 different pieces. Is there anything that we can simplify with negative 6?
You can make it a positive.
Good, a negative times a negative is a positive 6. Now let's go under the square root. Do you guys remember the order we have to go in under the square root? What do we do first?
Root, parentheses.
Good, but we can't do anything inside the parentheses. Not
Exponent.
exponent.
Go.
So what's What's negative 6 times negative 6?
36.
36. But now we're allowed to focus.
Now we're allowed.
Now we have to multiply. So let's put that big old minus and let's multiply. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20.
It's 14.
We can treat numerator and denominator separate. So how can I simplify the denominator?
What?
What's 2 times 1?
2.
Yeah, so we can simplify the denominator to be 2. Now, kiddos, to go to the next step, we just gotta simplify. What's 36 minus 20?
14.
Close.
Wait, no.
16.
Bro.
Put 2 column subtraction. 6 minus 0 is 6. 3 minus 2 is 1. Wait, do we know the square root of 16? We can't stop it.
How do you get the 2 on top of the square root?
Because it's a fraction and the 2 belongs in the bottom of the
Oh,
fraction.
see, I thought it was on top of the square root. Okay.
What's the square root of 16, everybody?
4.
4. Now, when we get down to this step, hold on, just like we did in last section.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Are we
hold on.
gonna?
Tyler, focus on me.
I'm ready.
Okay, so your head down. I thought that we were done already. Just like we did in last section, there are 2 answers. Alan, hang in there, buddy. There are 2 answers. We are going to split this up into 2 directions. One of them is going to be 6 plus 4 over 2. What am I going to do as my other answer?
Negative.
Not negative 6.
Or 6 minus 4.
Good. Or 6 minus 4 over 2. Why did I split it up? Because what was right here?
And
The positive.
it's 5 and
Make
1.
1 for a positive, 1 for a negative. 6 plus 4 is 10. And 10 over 2 is 5. So I have x equals 5.
And then you have
And that's 2, 1, x equals 1.
2 over 2, x equals 1. Now, kiddos, these numbers were nice and pretty because we're teaching you how to use the quadratic formula with a nice quadratic equation. But its use is for even harder ones. Remember I said there was only 1 page of notes today and the rest were examples. Can you try a couple more quadratic formulas and see if we can get one more done?
Okay.
Now I know you guys are not going to like the fraction, but let's just try number 1.
B is those.
Love negatives.
C is 7. And B is negative.
C is 7. That's the end one. B is the middle one, which is 2.
2.
Just the numbers. And A is negative 3. Don't forget the negative. So then when we go to plug in our formula, x equals negative 3 plus or minus square root. Who squared? C squared minus 4
Times
A C
over 2.
Guys in the back, Diego, this is the last time I'm going to talk to you. You and Mary are both staying late. Shush. When we go to simplify, we look at the top and the bottom separately. On top, negative times 2 is a negative 2, plus or minus. What can I do under the square root? Which comes first? Parentheses, there's nothing to do, so then we have to finish this problem. 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times negative 3 is a negative 12. Negative 12 times 7. Who does the 12 times table? What's negative 12 times 7?
84. Yes.
Negative 84. And a minus a negative 84 will turn positive. And then in the bottom, 2 times negative 3 is a negative 6. Then we get x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus square root. What happens with the negative times the negative? What's 4 plus 84?
That's 80.
No,
92.
8 over 98. No, wait.
88.
80, yeah,
84 plus 4 is 88. Kiddos, does anything go into 88 to simplify?
11 times 8.
11 goes in 8 times.
And then it would be
11
4
and 8 aren't perfect squares. What about 4 and 22? Can we do that instead?
How do you know?
We have to keep dividing 88 until we find a perfect square. plus square root of 4 is 2. I got the plus and minus. Now hold on, we're so close to being done, and then we'll be out of class. Do you guys see anything in common? Look out for the GCX. Anything shared?
Nose.
I can pull out and it's blue and I don't know why. I can pull out a 2. If I pull out a 2, I get negative 1 plus or minus 1 square root 22. Why did I pull that out? What can I do with 2 and 6?
Divide.
Close it out.
I can reduce them.
Plus 9.
2 and 6 can become 1 and 3.
Oh.
And so I end up with x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus square root 32 over 3. Now technically the negative in the bottom, we would need to move a negative 1 out also, which would flip everybody's signs. But we'll talk more about the funny things that happen tomorrow. You guys go ahead and grab out your phones if you're going to take a picture of the homework. I shortened the homework just a little bit. The same as it's on the backboard and the same as it's on the web. Try plugging in carefully tonight when they ask for it. Anybody else?